Welcome at this podcast episode of Two Tokens, where we always have interesting topics to discuss. And this time we have a truly interesting one again. Basically, we're going to go over the results and the experiences that we had based on the EU Regulatory Blockchain Sandbox Part 3, Cohort 3, because with Two Tokens, we were part of two prior ones. And in the third cohort, we were also one of the use cases. And obviously not alone, we were there with a big cohort of various companies, from the Ameland Energy Corporation to Hypha, ValueX, and ABN AMRO and EnergyBlocks all together working on this use case. And this use case was all about regulatory questions that we had with regards to tokenization of energy within renewable energy communities. And I said it out loud in one sentence, which is great. And with me, I have two very interesting guests. And one is Edgar Kampers, and the other one is Johannes Wirtz. And Edgar is from Hypha Energy, one of the people building the solutions for renewable energy communities. But we'll come down to you in a second, Edgar. And Johannes is the legal expert who really helped us thoroughly throughout the various use cases, including this one as well. So, Edgar, let me start with you. Renewable energy communities, what are we talking about? What is it? And why is tokenization maybe such a big deal within regional renewable energy communities?
Yeah, let me start with what the energy transition exactly is. So in the energy transition, we are moving from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And that is done both on the centralized level, like we always did. In the past, we had big hydro dams or nuclear or whatever. That needs to become green, so that needs to become sustainable, fossil fuel free. But it also happens by adding more and more energy assets on the local level. And these energy assets can have two different forms, or they are on my own rooftop. So then it's rooftop solar.
So we're talking solar panels that
solar
panels
installs,
yeah?
Time, yeah? Maybe yeah. Battery, maybe an urban windmill, if I like to add that. That's happening massively, especially in the Netherlands. We are number one in Europe, by the way, with 40% of the roofs already have some form of solar panels. So that's a lot. Only Australia has the same number, by the way. The rest of Europe is following, including Germany. And the other big part of that local energy production is done with common assets. So this is a renewable energy community, which is mostly cooperative or an association, can be a limited company, can be a foundation, where you have local households, consumers, local companies and local municipal players, the municipality, health services, hospitals, whatever, schools, that are collectively investing in assets, which can be a big windmill or smaller windmills. It can be solar again, can be batteries, can be whatever, as long as it's sustainable. And they control these assets together. So they own it, they control it together, and they use the offtake. And the definition is not that you need to own it to control it 100%. The definition is, in most cases, 50% or more. And in some countries, you can also lease it, and it doesn't matter if you own it.
Okay, and just a quick question. Why do they even want to start a renewable energy community? What is the incentive for people to do that?
So in some countries, it's pure financial. We studied many renewable energy communities, and we found one in Spain that saves people on a yearly basis around 800 euros per year. Now, that's considerable, 800 euros per year, 75 euros per month. In the Netherlands, we could reach probably the same numbers if you also do heat and cold. But it means that you need to become multimodal, and that's a little more complex. So you do the electricity and the heat and the cold. And this is very separated worlds still, which makes it a little complex. But we think we go there. The European regulation allows for that. So it's not just electricity, it's heat and cold, and it's also transport. So also charging your EV.
Yeah, but one of the elements is thus financially driven. Are there other elements why we would
then
start?
You have, if you look at the history of energy communities in Europe, then there's a very strong number. So in the Netherlands alone, 800 of energy cooperatives that started as producing collectively So it could be a group in Rivierenland with 1,000 households that all invest €1,000, and we buy a big windmill, which you put in the middle, and then we sell that to the grid. So this was a utility purpose, but it's a group of local investors, and they get the financial returns of that. So this was sort of the first generation. In the second generation, the energy that we produce is also used locally, but that means that you need to be able to share, and that is difficult. So if we speak about sharing and tokenization, we always speak about 50-minute intervals, which is the European logic behind this. And in every 50-minute interval, we, these common assets, produce energy credits, we translate them into a credit, and these energy credits enter your wallet if you have an investment in there, and then you consume, so you need to pay from that same wallet, and you can use these energy credits, or you use euros if you don't have energy credits.
But one step back, a lot of the renewable energy communities are financially driven. They think it's an interesting way to jointly invest and make some money out of it. But the second thing is also quite interesting that you mentioned, is that you produce locally and consume locally. So this also contributes to elements like, for example, fighting net congestion, because it basically is being consumed at the place where it's produced as much as possible. So it makes you also resilient to net congestion or net outage, because you become more self-sustainable. That could be...
Yeah, that's correct. That's recognized in some countries. For example, in Italy, if I'm the same distribution area, so the same village, the same neighborhood in the city, and I produce energy and also consume that in the same area, then you get a subsidy of 20 cents per kilowatt hour from the Italian government. I would wish that this was everywhere, because this makes the business case super easy to do it. And it's not always easy, this business case.
Mm-hmm. But they give this subsidy to fight net congestion and make sure that...
That's the idea behind it.
Okay.
Because we did some calculations. If you're able to do, say, 50% of the energy consumption with production in that same area, then you don't need the grid upgrades that everybody's speaking about. Yeah. So you could avoid a lot of these grid upgrades and save a lot of money. Of course, you need grid upgrades in many places. You still need to have, for heavy industry, you need grid upgrades. And for transporting energy from the North Sea to Germany, you need grid upgrades. But you do not necessarily need it for what's happening in that local area. In the country of the Netherlands, which is a high energy country, by the way, the electricity use in these households is not growing. That's very, very stable for quite a long time. Meaning, what are we speaking about? Okay, we speak about things that we are adding, like we are adding batteries, we are adding solar panels, we are adding electrical cars. So that's what we need to cater for, but that's sort of it. It doesn't become more complex, because all these things also become more efficient. So if we want to list the big advantages, it's economical, financial, clearly. In some countries more than other countries, by the way. In Norway, it's very tough to get it around. Okay. Then we have the fact that people can do something themselves. They are part of the solution for climate change. Suddenly, I can do something and I can earn a little money, so that's nice. So it's this perspective to act. Then there is a strong social component. Almost every energy community, not all of them, but most of them have a strong social component. So you can use part of the energy, say 10% of all the energy that you produce collectively, and give that to elderly with energy poverty. So people that can't pay or afford their energy bill. So you could say, all right, we give this as a basic income to the elderly in a community. We give them 2,000 or 3,000 kilowatt hours per year for free. After that, they start to pay, so there's still an incentive to be a little careful there. But that's a very strong social incentive. And almost every energy community has things like this, from supporting the local football club or the local church, or these type of social programs.
And just one more clarification question. These RECs, are we talking it's me and my neighbor? Is it the whole street? Is it the municipality? Can it be a province? What is the size of an REC?
So they have any size at the moment. There are two different regimes to make it a little more complex. We have collective self-consumption, that you are my neighbor, because you have south-facing roof and I don't. So you produce the energy and you share that with me. Yeah. And I just give you a couple of bottles of wine or pay you or whatever the deal is. This can be a little more complex. So a lot of these self-collective consumptions you see typically in industrial zones or commercial zones, but also in households. In the south of Europe, This is the dominant model, not the energy community, but this collective self-consumption. Then you have the renewable energy community. So now we have shared assets. We co-own and control these assets. And in that situation,
is it large? Is it small?
the size of it,
yeah,
yes,
size,
yes.
yeah.
We see that they become larger. So we thought 3 years ago when we started that a homeowner association just in a small apartment building would be the logical place to do it. But the number of things that you need to organize and that are complex is so high, like administration, you need to send invoices, you need to have a relationship with the energy retailer, you need to make sure you have data in and export. And then on top of all the other things that are already complex within a community. So they tend to become larger and larger. And we think that a distribution area, so the place where the mid voltage goes to the low voltage area, that's typically a neighborhood with, say, 5,000 people and a shopping center and a small hospital, whatever, areas like that. That is typically an area for a very logical renewable energy community. And in there, you have then the separate subgroups, like my homeowner association, your shopping center, and your swimming pool.
So basically, we can have various sizes. It can be small, but it can be up to, logically speaking, say, areas like 5,000 households, what you're referring to.
Yeah, there's a legal max there, because if they own assets, then in most countries, the legal max is 6 megawatt production capacity.
And one of the problems that you described is there's a lot of hassle, and I would say that one of them is having a clear administration between sharing of the different households and etc. This is probably where tokenization then comes in. This is the EV token that you refer to, right? The EV stands for?
Yeah, we call them now energy credits, or whatever, because EV token was not a very, and we don't want to use the word token.
Okay.
So we call them energy credits, and it's the result of the micro-accounting smart contract. And in that micro-accounting, you have all production points, all the consumption points, all the import points. Every household can have a contract with a different provider, except in the Netherlands, but in every other country this is the case. All the export points, because you can have a different contract for your import and for your export to the grid. And then we have all the batteries that add a little price to everything happening here. So all these different data points, and this can be thousands and thousands and thousands per 50 minutes, are kicked into the smart contract, and that thing then calculates the price of a kilowatt hour in that 50-minute interval, and that's where all the micro accounting starts.
Yeah, and based after the micro accounting, there's a result. You get your electricity credit, and you can use that to sell or buy electricity from basically your neighbor or anyone else.
This goes automatically.
Yeah,
so if you are co-owning, then you get these credits. If you're not co-owning, you don't get these credits. So only co-owners get these credits, and your consumption is deducted from this. So this is just a simple calculation. And in the end, people need to pay, if they are minus, they need to pay the difference in the stablecoin. So that's very simple. And at the end of the month, you get an invoice for the whole thing. So it's not that you have to pay every 50 minutes or whatever. You get once a month an invoice, and all these payments are automated.
And basically with these credits, because they represent part of my part of the supply, let me put it like that, I can pay my energy bill, but I can also, for example, give them to my neighbor or give them to somebody else.
Yeah, you can give them away within the community, maybe also outside the community. That's one of these border cases. Or I can sell them to my neighbors, or alternatively, I can use it to go to the tool shop and buy insulation materials.
Yeah, and here it becomes interesting because we're talking about a concept of a closed network environment or closed networks, and this is highly important for example, the legal regulatory status. Well, let me reintroduce Johannes in this case. Johannes Wirtz, partner at Bird & Bird, specialized in, amongst others, MyCar, but very active in the various sandboxes. And also including in Cohort 3, where you really looked at these credits. Basically, they're technically speaking, there are tokens on the background. and looked at them from a crypto asset perspective, but also helped us out here. What is this closed network effect, and what kind of effect does it have? Can you elaborate a little bit more? Are we talking here a crypto asset to start with? What is this token?
Yeah, always when you have a project which involves the use or the issuance of a token, you need to pose a question if you want to be legal compliant, and I know you all want to be legally compliant. What is the regulatory classification of this token? And there, it often, since DLT is involved, the first point is MiCA applicable? So first step, taking a look at the definition of crypto asset. Is this token qualifying as a crypto asset? There are first points where you can more or less design your project around that it does not fit into this definition. For example, you can make it non-transferable. Then you have more or less just an accounting system running on the blockchain, but you cannot transfer the token from one person to another, which makes the use case just described, where you said you can transfer it and use it at the tools or send it to those people in need would not be possible.
Yeah, so that way out was not feasible for this use case.
Correct. So you have the first step. The goal was to have it transferable, which means that the other definitions of a crypto asset, the other requirements, conditions thereof of the term crypto asset and MiCA are likely fulfilled. Then we have other points which may exclude a crypto asset from the scope of MiCA. Having it, for example, as a non-fungible token, but also here not the goal of the use case. Why using non-fungible tokens that would change the complete idea. Having it as other assets to being excluded, like having it as a financial instrument, having it as a deposit, and so on. Yeah, could be structured, but from my perspective, as what I heard, was not the goal. So we have a crypto asset covered by MiCA, and then we need to take the question: in which kind of category of crypto asset does it fall? Is it an asset reference token because it makes reference to energy? Is energy an asset in this regard? A lot of questions around asset reference token. As you can see from the market, there's currently no asset reference token listed in ESMA's register. So there are a lot of open questions. What actually qualifies as asset reference token? Is it an EMT? That would mean that it has its value from the reference to one official currency. Also, from my perspective, a question mark. Yeah. And then we have the category of other crypto assets, and there it becomes relevant for the limited network point that there are some releases. If you are issuing a token which is only used in a limited network of merchants, then there is a release from the white paper requirement. More or less, Title 2 of MiCA is not applicable anymore.
That means that you don't need a license, or
yeah, as an issue of an other crypto asset, you don't need a license, which is a good thing. There are requirements of service providers, of course. If you would start execution transaction in it, if you would provide custody for it as a third party, then there would be, of course, a requirement that you need a license as a CASP. Yeah. But Title 2 on the issuer has the white paper requirement, the requirement on marketing information, the requirement to act prudent and honestly, and so on. Some of those just don't apply unless, again, if it's traded on a crypto exchange, then you are back in a more regulated field. But otherwise, you get the option to keep it more or less on a low level.
Yeah. So this network effect and how big or how small is the network is confined, yes or no, can have huge consequences on what you have to set in place in order to start using it.
Yes, and if you take a look at the limited network language in MiCA on this point, there's not so much explanation around it. So you could
So up for interpretation.
up for interpretation, and as it's a new regulation, there are many open points. This is one of it. Of course, we know limited networks from other regulations. For example, PSD2 and also EMD2, the e-money directive, make reference to an exemption for limited networks. There we have interpretative guidelines by different regulators. We have certain Q&As from the European regulators. So there we can get a bit closer to the point. While it's not directly binding, there is no direct statement that it's the same, because it would have been possible, but then the lawmakers would have more or less just needed to include a reference to PSD2, then we would have a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Here, since we have the same words, more or less the same words, there are a lot of arguments that it should be interpreted in the same way. But taking a look at the exclusion from PSD2, they are actually for limited scope usable payment instruments. We have three different types. There's the limited network, then we have the very limited range exemption, and then we have an exemption for social and tax purposes cards or payment instruments. So also there we have more or less more colors than in MiCA, where we have only the limited network.
And what is limited range then? What do they mean with that?
So if you have a payment instrument which you can only use to acquire a very limited range of goods and services,
For example, just energy. Yeah.
then this would be excluded from PSD2.
Yeah.
It has also an aspect here with MiCA, because if you would issue an e-money token,
Yeah.
then this exemption would be relevant again. But if it qualifies as other crypto asset, then the limited range would not be relevant anymore, just the limited network.
So the limited network could be the result of a confinement, just, for example, geographically, it's just a street where we can use it, or say maybe it's a broader perspective. For example, it's a municipality, but you can only use it for energy and not at the hardware store that you were referring to, for example. So if there are multiple, let me say, axes that you can use to approach this limited network.
Yeah. So the limited network as such, the general idea is that if you have certain merchants, for example, acting under the same roof, if you're going into a store and the store is issuing their own customer card, but there are certain areas where certain brands are selling themselves, but actually you don't notice as a customer, then this should be exempt, because it's so seamless.
Okay. So if you have a shop in shop,
Correct.
You could, for example, in the Netherlands we have the Bijenkorf. You have the Bijenkorf card, but you can pay at all different shops and shops there, because the end user wouldn't see the difference. It's just one building where they shop. Yeah.
For example, this makes sense to exclude this as a network of merchants under the same brand payment instrument, so excluded from regulation. And there's a question, where actually does a limited network stop to be limited?
Yeah.
If you have the idea that you start with some shops, but the general idea is to cover a whole city or a province, then the question is whether it should still apply.
Yeah.
If you have a clear limit to say, okay, we are all connected to commercial agreements because they might all be part of the community, then there's a better argument to say, yes, it's limited. We only want to have those who are active in the community. And there's no goal to extend it to multiple other merchants. No, it's just focused on this part.
Yeah. So clear, or at least we learned more about what is this limited network exemption. We also learned that we see differences in definitions over various regulations, which is something we have to address too. What was for Hypha the most important lesson out of this whole exercise that we did? Because these are great exercises for the broader communities, but what did you guys actually take out of it?
Yeah, so the main one is that is what we are doing is very doable.
Yeah.
We are not certain yet if we are an internal stablecoin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we are a utility token that's only used within the network, which is the starting point for us to go for. And we can do almost every case that we want to do. So we need to have solutions for moments where the use of these energy credits are outside the area where we are. But as long as you buy energy within your community, or you use it for charging your car on the highway, and that's the end point. So there's just an invoice relationship there. And same with the toolshop, by the way, it would end there. Mm-hmm. So we will not let it go further than that. We are probably okay. And for me, the interesting question is still, how big is then a limited network? If we say that's typically this distribution area with, say, 5,000 houses, the shopping center, a couple of office buildings, maybe a small harbor, this area, is that then enough limited network if you only can use it for energy and that's it? And we still don't have that answer very sharp here.
No. So back to Johannes. What would we need to get an answer on that? Any ideas?
Well, of course, we have certain processes in place where you can ask regulators. At least in several European countries, it is possible. Just getting touch with a competent authority, present the use case, and then you will get feedback on this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also one of the great things of the European Blockchain Sandbox, that this was a safe environment where such questions could be discussed, and where there was time and the room for such discussions, while as we just see, open-ended. There is no final decision from any regulator on it. It was just a discussion, just a dialogue, but we learned a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I think one thing Edgar said, he said he can do something now. Yeah. And I think that's very important. And often one of the things where I think Mika is criticized on the wrong aspects, because I hear so many times that Mika is preventing innovations. And I think it's not preventing it. It's, of course, making it more burdensome because you need to check another regulatory instrument. You need to make sure that you are compliant. But there is no prohibition of being innovative. It's just may need some more research, some more clarifications. And there, during the 3 years of the European Blockchain Sandbox, we got a lot of points on where we got more clarity on, or at least we got some points on it where we are asking regulators and lawmakers to clarify those things. So identifying those points was already one of the large impacts from the sandbox. And on that basis, we need to continue discussions and dialogues with regulators to get clarity on so many points, and this is one of it.
Yeah, and in that regard, like you said, MiCAR, but also other regulations, sometimes by the industry, is regarded as a burden. And yes, regulation might slow down innovation in some sort. Obviously, if there's no regulation, innovation would go harder. But I would state that although it might slow down innovation a bit, it will accelerate in the end adoption, because unclarity with regards to regulation kills adoption in the end. So I would say on that note, we are already 25 minutes further, and I think we touched upon very interesting points. But if people want to know more, they should read the best practice report that we published with the sandbox, and also dive more into the use case of the renewable energy communities as presented by, for example, Hypha in this case. So I want to thank you, Johannes, and thank you, Edgar, for your time and your effort, not only for this podcast, but in the months before. We tried to summarize it in 25 minutes, but it's been months of work. So thank you so much, and hope to see you soon again in a new, very much mind-enriching environment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening in, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find our contact details at www.twotokens.org.